as we dare to think, perhaps this is the moment.
Should we harmonize that part?
Perhaps this is
the...
Is there a... Okay, if we're going to harmonize...
We should say it together. Like, as we dare to think, pause, pause, perhaps.
Hey there, and welcome to the Perhaps This Is the Moment podcast. I'm your host, Davis Watts.
And I'm Davis's wife and co-host, Abby Watts. The Perhaps This Is the Moment podcast is a weekly reminder that you were created for right now. It doesn't mean there wasn't a purpose for your past or a plan for your future, just that right now is the moment that we've been given.
We're a husband and wife team. We love the church, music, and sharing our faith in a down-to-earth way. So journey with us through the fun, the chaos, and the challenges as we dare to think, perhaps this is the moment.
Welcome to episode 2 of the Perhaps This Is the Moment podcast. This week, we explore our culture's obsession with do-overs, specifically in the form of time travel plot lines and time loop plot lines, which I'm not a sci-fi person. I don't like Star Trek, and I'm not really usually into that kind of show, but for some reason, time travel stuff really is intriguing to me.
It's fascinating. There are so many movies that are like centric to it. Mm-hmm. That's a terrible way to say it.
Well, no, I mean, that's the thing. There really are a lot. They're big in our culture, like the time loop, which I guess it's best explains as getting to do the same thing over again the same day, like Groundhog Day.
Okay.
Super popular, right? What's the opening after Sonny and Cher start singing and the radio announcers come on? It's gonna be a cold one and whatever.
All I remember is Sonny and Cher. I do not remember what the announcers say.
But then, like, in general time travel, there's Back to the Future, Quantum Leap, Peggy Sue Got Married. You just finished season 1 of Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, I didn't even really know it was going to be about time travel. I just thought, oh, this is pretty cool, pretty interesting premise. And then time travel plays a big role in it.
I slept through every episode.
I think you lasted maybe 8-10 minutes in the first one.
In the first one.
You know, honestly, I didn't know I was going to finish the series because it opened a little slow. I was kind of disappointed at first, but I stuck with it. And it paid off.
All right.
I thought it was good.
Have you heard, is there going to be a season 2?
There better be. They set it up for a season 2.
Well, the show that kind of got us talking about this theme, we watched Russian Doll on Netflix, also Netflix.
Yes.
And now keep in mind, it is not a show for kids. It has some mature content for sure. But the premise is that Nadia is the main character. She's played by Natasha Lyonne, and she, on her 36th birthday, she starts at a birthday party in this bathroom at her friend's house, and she leaves her birthday party and gets hit by a car. And then she kind of wakes up again, replaying the same day. She knows it's the same day because it's the same birthday party. The same song is playing on the radio and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And she just keeps on reliving and reliving and reliving that day, trying to figure out why it's happening, how it's happening, if it's really happening, or if she's just already dead, or if she's crazy or whatever. And it was really interesting. It was different than Groundhog Day, but very similar at the same time.
Yeah, I think it was a lot less obvious why she needed to, or what she needed to do than it was in Groundhog Day. Mm-hmm. I think Groundhog Day kind of laid it out in a little bit more of an obvious plot line. But we had no idea why she was having to relive this same life over and over again until, what was it, 4 or 5 episodes in?
I don't even think we knew then. I don't think you really knew until the final episode.
Well, yeah, but then it took a while for her to start making connections, is what I'm saying. And, Groundhog Day, I guess they had the advantage of being able to do it in kind of a montage way. Mm-hmm. Whereas in this, with the episodic thing, they had to really kind of lay it out in every episode.
But all of those movies and shows, they definitely have common themes throughout them. Mm-hmm. Like the time travel has a lot of common themes. Like, for instance, that little moments matter. In Russian Doll, she encounters this homeless man and his shoes get stolen. And the next night he sleeps on the street instead of the homeless shelter, and he dies because he is he dies from whatever, hypothermia, I guess.
Yeah,
He'd been
exposure.
sleeping on the street. And so the next time around in her next life, she guards his shoes at the homeless shelter so
Right.
that he won't be afraid to sleep there again. So it's like this little thing, just his pair of shoes is what saved his life. And so you realize, okay, this little tiny thing, what ripple effect it can have on other people or on time after that moment.
So those little moment themes kind of play throughout all of them. Back to the Future. What was the little moment in Back to the Future, I think, was whether McFly decided to race Flea or not. You know, he's at the intersection, and I can't remember Flea's character's
Was
name.
this in
What
Back
was
to the
it?
Future too?
I don't remember which one it was, but it was one of those moments, you know, it was pivotal, and his whole future is destroyed because he couldn't resist racing this guy next to him at the light. And so they had to go through and do all this stuff. And then he finally got to relive it and replay it out. And instead, you know, sent himself into reverse. And, you know, the course of his life is back on track again. But
Right.
it's those little things that we don't necessarily get to do over again. And we kind of need to pay attention to them in the now.
Right. It kind of puts the pressure on that you have to go to the Enchantment Under the Sea dance with the right girl or else.
Which is this one?
That's the first one. Are you kidding me? That's the first one. That's
The
the
enchantment.
dance.
Oh, yes.
Where they
yeah.
kiss and-
Otherwise, you go with your mom and then you don't
Bad
exist
things happen.
anymore.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Another theme I think that we see in all these is, especially in Back to the Future, is that lives intersect. And, you know, as Marty's life intersects more and more with his mother, he starts to disappear because all of a sudden she's not interested, or there's not an opportunity for George McFly to
Right.
court her and to become her husband.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Because she's enamored with Marty. How
yeah,
creepy
which
and weird
really
is that?
Weird.
What a great plot line.
Yeah.
It's just enough to make you go, ugh, but really?
Putting aside the whole, like, hey, it's a high school kid that follows around this weird professor guy who, or you know, scientist guy who gets plutonium from Libyans. Like,
I wasn't even talking about that part. I was just talking about back when he goes to the 50s and all of a sudden he's the cool kid on the block and his mom thinks he's hot.
yeah, that's weird.
It's creepy.
And then I think that the main thing though that we see in a lot of them is that these shows, these themes play on our regrets and us wanting to undo wrongs. We want to fix things. So we go back in time to make right what once was wrong. That's
Or
kind of
we-
like the opening theme to Quantum Leap.
Right. Or we have to live the same day over and over again until we finally get it right. Groundhog Day, Russian Doll.
Yeah. And it's cool, actually. In Russian Doll, she's a video game programmer. It shows, like, as you play these games over and over again, you get to see where you died, and then you can avoid it. You can try to do it again, but do it better, which is what she tries to do. She's like, all right, I got big fish to fry. I got to try to make it down the stairs. You know, she's going to
Yeah.
try to make it down the stairs without falling and killing herself. And so, like, you play Mario Brothers again, and you know, that's where that bomb got me last time. So I'm going to be really careful. And then you get there, but then it's like, okay, now I've got uncharted territory in front of me.
I love that you're the one in this relationship that picked up on the whole she's a video game programmer thing and tied that in with the movie and I didn't. It completely went over my head. I didn't pay attention to that part, I guess. I just was looking at the surface of the movie.
I thought it was pretty cool.
It's neat. I mean, especially once you point it out to me and I can understand what's going on.
Well, and the other, with this theme of would you do it again if you had the choice? That's big. I know that you're not super familiar with Peggy Sue Got Married, but I loved that movie. You
I know that your favorite actor in the whole wide world was in it. Good old Nick Cage. Ghost Rider. Was he Ghost Rider?
I don't know.
There was so many great movies.
But she's at her high school reunion.
Con
and
Air.
She passes out and she wakes up in high school again. And so she's back with all of her friends and,
Right.
and being like, and dating her now husband. And in real time, her marriage is on the rocks. They're splitting up. And so she has to ask herself, if I had it to do over again, would I marry him again?
Yeah. Would you still pursue the person that hurt you?
Yeah. And when you know that something in your life breaks or something in your life goes wrong, you, in this plot line at least, you're asked the question, would you do it again, even though you know that there's hurt ahead?
And I think that example really kind of points to what all of these time travel movies are really about. And really the heart of it is just the brokenness and our desire to fix things, namely relationships. You know, I mean, how did that Peggy Sue Got Married movie, Mary Got Peggy Sue, what'd she do? She did get married.
She got married.
So, you know, how did that one wind up? Let's give a spoiler.
Well, it's like 30 years old, so it's fine.
Exactly.
She wakes up in a hospital room, and her husband is there. Nicolas Cage is there, looking old again. And he's like, "Oh, Peggy." And it's horrible. "Oh, Peggy." It's
I just
so
wanted you to do
bad.
your Nick Cage
It's
impersonation.
So bad. He's like, "Peggy, I'm so sorry." And basically he's like, I'll be better. I'll be good. It's going to be good.
Never mind. I don't want to know. So
how did I perfect my Nicolas Cage impression? I don't know.
But you know what these movies are really all about? It's that desire to fix something. You've got to go back in time to fix things, or you're stuck in the time loop until you get it right. It's because, and I think we gravitate toward these movies so much, and there are so many movies in our culture with that plot line. It's because we are designed to be in relationship. You know, if you dig it down just to the nitty gritty, God made man in his image. And if you think about that, what is God? You know, God is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. God is, in his essence, a relationship. And you even see, you go back and you look in Genesis, you know, God made the world, he made the universe, he made animals, he made man, and he looked at man and said, it's not good for you to be alone. And so he made woman for man to be in relationship with. And man and woman are in relationship with God. And so there we go. We've got another Trinity all of a sudden. And, you know, that's a kind of part of what sprung this whole podcast up. You know, Abby and I in relationship with each other. We're in that sacramental relationship. We've got God there at the top of the Trinity. But there's this fundamental brokenness that we have in our human nature. And that is original sin. And if you want to go back to Genesis again and you look at it in the imagery that we have there, we just keep wanting to go back and unbite that apple. You know, you want to fix that relationship, the most important relationship, because when they broke that relationship with God, when they broke that covenant relationship with God, they also broke that relationship with each other. And so now we have to live in this world where we are constantly trying to go back in time and unbite the apple.
What if Adam and Eve had a TARDIS?
Oh, don't even make me think about that. That would be just glorious.
But, you know, the cool thing is we actually can time travel as Catholic Christians. We time travel every Sunday in the Mass. Mm-hmm. And I know you're like, really? Do you? We do. I promise we do. I have the catechism memorized. I just want you to know. I can, you tell me
proud of you.
Part and no, I'm just kidding. But in part 1326, or is it section 1326?
No, who knows?
Okay. It states that the Holy Mass is part of a future event. By the Eucharistic celebration, we already unite ourselves with the heavenly liturgy and anticipate eternal life when God will be all in all. So we anticipate being part of a future event. It also says a few sections later that we bring forth a past event. The Holy Sacrifice makes present the one sacrifice of Christ the Savior. So we are in the present at Mass, in that church on whatever street, with your family, with your friends, with that priest, and you are uniting yourself with the future, that eternal life. You're also uniting yourself with that sacrifice that Jesus made on the cross that day. And so it's like you are part of eternity in the Eucharist at Mass.
I remember the first time a priest ever explained this idea to me. I was a youth minister, and I wanted the priest to come and do a teaching Mass for the teens. And I was still very new to the church, even though God had called me into youth ministry so early in my walk with him in the Catholic faith. And I remember Father John coming and doing this and talking about it. And he actually laid that out. And that night when he celebrated Mass with us and he raised the host, it just in my mind was the stereotypical time swirl that you see in every single movie. It's like the heavens opened up and this big vortex of swirliness happened, and I saw the kingdom of heaven at the same time that I saw the crucifixion. And it was, I wasn't like having a vision kind of thing. This is just my imagination playing through it. But isn't that amazing to know that that's not really, that's how we imagine it, but that's fact. That's what is actually occurring at the time of consecration, at the point of consecration, when the priest is asking Jesus to enter bodily the Eucharist and the precious blood, that vortex is opening up for us every single time.
And I love the use of the word remembering. Somebody once explained it to me, and I'm not going to get it right, but you're remembering as opposed to dismembering. When you dismember, you pull something apart. When you remember, you put it back together.
Yes.
And so you're entering the enduring moment of Christ's sacrifice. You are entering back into it. You're remembering it. You're putting it back together. And we receive not only Christ, but also all the time that was gathered amongst himself. And it's like, for just a moment, you're receiving that eternity through his body. That's pretty epic.
Time travel every Sunday.
Exactly.
Or every day if you want to go to daily Mass.
That's true. But even on top of that, we also have the beauty of the liturgical calendar. And I think that this is so cool because, we've been talking a lot of Catholic here. And if you're not Catholic, you're like, I'm totally lost and this isn't something that we do. I think that more and more churches outside of the Catholic Church are starting to celebrate liturgical seasons.
Yes.
I know that some churches celebrate Lent. A lot of churches celebrate Advent. We're still trying to get on board with the whole, and I think a lot of us Catholics are still trying to change our mental focus to like Christmas is December 25th and then there's the Christmas season afterwards. I think it's hard to push back on.
Especially when they start playing
culture.
Christmas music the day after Halloween.
Right. Right. But to continue to celebrate Easter for all the days after Easter Sunday and to celebrate Christmas for all those days after Christmas Day, I think it's hard for us. But that liturgical calendar is this wheel that circles endlessly through the Christian story from the very beginning, circling and circling and circling through now, and it will continue to circle on. And I don't know a lot about Stephen Hawking. I know he's an atheist. I know he's a scientist. I know he studied time and has a lot of theories on that. I don't know much about him, but I know that he had a theory that time was not a straight line. It was not linear.
Right.
Right. And maybe we don't have the same thought as him, but looking at the liturgical calendar, maybe it's not so far off. I was reading this article from uscatholic.org by the writer is Jessica Mesman, and she kind of posed that theory that, that as a Catholic, we have the beauty of this liturgical calendar, and it makes it where we're not just marching forward in time, we're actually getting to do it over and over and over again every single year, thanks to the liturgical seasons. And she said this line, she said, when we can only go forward, we leave so much behind. And I think that's so true. It's like when the only direction to move is forward, there's all those, but what if I had done this differently? And thanks to the liturgical seasons, you can say, okay, I get to try this again. I get to go through Lent again and try to really make that sacrifice. Or I get to go through Advent again and really work on anticipating Jesus's second coming. And, you get to try it over and over and over again. And hopefully the intent is to grow every time in your faith and in your knowledge and in your understanding and in your relationship with God.
I think a lot of times we get stuck in this idea of linear time because that's how we have to live it. And we forget that God is outside of time completely. And that's the weird thing. It's not something, because we are stuck in this. It's not something that we can actually fully comprehend. One of those mysteries that we can't take ourselves out of this linearness. Right. And so he's given us these tools to be able to deal with it. And one of those very underutilized tools, I think, is the liturgical calendar. And I'll tell you, I was the biggest opponent of it. Leading into my journey into the Catholic faith, I was very opposed to tradition. And I was like, Christ died on the cross for me, and it's over and it's done and it's all good to go. And from here on out, we're set. And I've got that very linear approach of I've been saved, so now I'm good. I'm all fine. But when we realize that God is outside of time, He didn't save me that moment. He is saving me continually. And so if I then can embrace the liturgical calendar, then I can, not that I have to work to be worthy of Him at all. He's already done the saving. That happened on the cross. And like we said just a moment ago, it rehappens for us. We remember it every single time we experience Mass. But I'm stuck in that linear time frame, and because Jesus is outside of it, if I do embrace the liturgical calendar, then I have that opportunity for the do-overs every single year, like you were mentioning. But I mean, it's like it becomes, instead of a linear journey toward salvation, it becomes a cyclical journey towards sainthood, and toward that purification, that holiness that He is calling me to, that is so hard for me to grasp or to get, but that He wants me to have anyway. I remember, in Isaiah, when he has the vision of God and the seraphim and the cherubim, and they're all there, and he's approaching God, and they have to pull that charcoal out of the fire, out of the burner, and cleanse his mouth with it. They put that burning coal on his lips in order for him to be able to be in the presence of God. We still have that work to do. Christ has done it for us salvifically, but for us to be what God calls us to be, He wants us to embrace sainthood. And I think the liturgical calendar is a really good way to work at that.
I think as a person who likes structure, I appreciate it, because it's not just like, work towards sainthood, just go for it. Okay, good. We have these sections that we can work in, and It breaks it down, and we focus on this for this long, and then we focus on this for this long. I love it. I think another really practical application of how to try to, since we can't time travel, how do we work on these relationships with one another and with God? I heard about this thing called the 3x5 examen. It was presented by I think it was a Franciscan priest, and basically said in the middle of the day, it's a 5-minute examination of conscience, and it's 3 parts. So the 5 minutes is the 5 part, the 3x5. So 3 parts are in 5 minutes. Give thanks for 5 things that have happened in your day. Think of 5 ways you failed in your day, asking for God's mercy, and then look forward to the rest of your day thinking of 5 things that you might need help with, and ask God for help. So it's like, you don't get the do-over. You don't get the Groundhog Day where you can start every day again. But if you do this 3x5 examine, or any kind of examination of conscience kind of in the middle of the day, you still have some room to make things better. Make a conscious effort at some point during your day to look back, to give thanks, and then to look forward on what else you want to come.
I really like having practical ways that we can put things that we learn into effect. I'm always big when I'm doing youth ministry, like at the end of a night or a retreat or whatnot, making the kids write like 3 concrete examples of something that they can go and apply to their life. So I think that 3x5 examination is a great one. And, if we have this constant desire to make sure our relationships are correct, then, there are other ways that we can do that throughout the day. The 3x5 is a great way to start it, especially in your relationship with God. But how about maybe also applying that to your relationship with your spouse or your relationship with your children? Just kind of think of some ways throughout the day that, how could I have done that better? How could I have redone that conversation if I had to do it over again? Just because you don't have it to do over again doesn't mean you can't make it better for the next time. And so these little things that we can look out for throughout the day will help us not have to get into a Groundhog Day scenario, because nobody wants God doing that to him.
And welcome to episode 2 of the Perhaps This Is the Moment podcast. This week, I'm just kidding. See what I did there? See, it's like it was Groundhog Day and we're coming back to the beginning.
That was good.
No, actually now we have...
You didn't put that in the show notes.
I
so
just
you
came
really
up with it
took
on my own. We've come to the time in the show where we share a significant moment from the past week. What was your moment from this past week, Davis?
My moment from this past week was getting to almost completion on the laundry room. So I was really excited when we got the last wall up and the carpet down, and just a few more little finishing touches until it is your perfect laundry haven. I know you've wanted one for a long time.
The washer and dryer's in the garage, and so I had to keep on going outside and get like dirty, and it just felt dirty.
I make a lot of sawdust in the garage. So
no, but just dirt coming in from outside. It was just, there was leaves blowing in and just dirt. Like,
That's
your
true.
garage gets dirty. You want to ask me what mine was?
What was your moment of the week, Abby?
Thank you. I have 2.
What?
I'm probably always going to have 2. Okay, my first one's real quick, though. Watching the pilot to Quantum Leap.
Ugh.
Because it was really not great.
It was terrible.
And I had super high expectations because I really love this show. So watching the pilot and seeing how not great it was compared to...
Terrible.
Okay, I got it. How great it was, how not good it was compared to the actual show gave me hope for our podcast.
Oh, okay.
I was like, see, like you can have a rough start, but things can turn out really good. So come back for another episode.
Okay, good.
My other moment for the week was this show that we watched last night on this guy that pretty much hacked The Price is Right by memorizing prices for everything.
Dude was insane.
And he was doing it for decades.
Yes.
Like not just, hey, a car is going to be $13,599. It was like, this car with these features is going to be this. And then this car with these features is going to be this. And he would sit in the audience and like tell other contestants the prices, and they would get them on the nose. Like, how many different clips did they have? How many different clips did they have of him telling someone the price and then ding, 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 because someone guessed it right on the nose? Like, it was probably 6 or 7.
Yeah, I was going to say probably close to 10, because you fell asleep about halfway through the show, as usual. What's the name of it? We need to...
We'll put it in the show notes.
Okay, we'll put it in the show notes. But yeah, that was pretty amazing. That was a good show.
Just to know that someone can be that numbers minded. Like, I'm not a numbers person. And so that guy just had these numbers memorized and was doing the math, and it was very, very impressive.
Crazy.
Very impressive. So tell us your favorite moment from the week and tag us at Perhaps Podcast on Instagram or on Facebook. Use the hashtag Perhaps Podcast.
And that's going to do it for this episode. Make sure you subscribe to us if you haven't already. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and all your favorite podcasting experiences, and say hi to us out there on the socials.
And if you haven't rated us already, go back in time to when you should have. And no, it doesn't work, really, does it? Is there any time travel reference you can make?
No, I don't think so.
If you gave us a bad review, go back in time and change it to a good...
That's it. Thanks for hanging out.